Hello, Ian Newton here again. Moving on to video 2. But before we do, we just recap. Remember, smoking does not relieve stress. You get that a little bit, but then the stress hormones start flowing. It's really, really important to lock that thought into your mind. Secondly, eat apples to manage your blood sugar. Helps regulate stress, helps regulate your eating. It'll stop you putting on weight if that's what you're concerned about. If you're not concerned about putting on weight, eat apples anyway, because it just balances the blood sugar and helps make you feel really good. So I'd like you to treat this video as if you're already in my office and that this was our talk session before the hypnosis part starts. So we're doing it now for a couple of reasons. One, people wanted to be able to get in and out in shorter time frames. They want to be able to get out in their lunchtime, or not take so much time off work to do a session. And also, if I'm giving you lots and lots of information, it's hard to take it all in when you're just sitting there in the chair. This way you can visit this video again if you need to, and even after you quit, as a reminder, you can come back and look at it again just to remind yourself of some of the important points that we cover. Great. So as if you were in here in my office with me, we'll just proceed. So the first thing that I want to talk about is hypnosis itself. What is it and what it isn't? It's not mind control. I cannot control your mind. There are some segments of society out there who don't like hypnosis because of the fear of mind control. But here's a simple rule. I cannot make you do something you don't want to do. Have you ever seen a newspaper headline that said, hypnotist forces Sunshine Coast mother to rob the National Bank? No, never have you seen such a thing, and you never will. Now, there would be a small possibility of doing it if that person was a bank robber already and it was within their moral code to rob banks, but chances are they wouldn't bring the money to me, they'd keep it for themselves. So that's an important rule. I cannot make you do something you don't want to do. So you're interested in quitting smoking, and that's all we're focused on. If during the session I said, hand over your wallet or your purse, you'd open your eyes and you'd say, no. As simple as that. Can't make you do something you don't want to do. I just really want to get that, because one of the things that can block hypnosis is fear. What's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen when I go under, when I'm deep in hypnosis. Well, you are never deep in hypnosis for a start. Your conscious mind is always alert, because say a fire alarm could go off, a smoke detector. You would simply open your eyes and walk out. You are never ever out of control. Very important to remember that. Now, hypnosis is on a sliding scale somewhere between being awake and being asleep. You are never ever that far down as being asleep. So some people go into a deeper phase, some people lighter, but they always have that level of conscious awareness. Where I work in Budrum, we have buses go by. Other places have other challenges sometimes. It doesn't matter. Now your conscious mind might be thinking, I wonder where that bus is going. But your unconscious mind doesn't care. It knows what buses do. It's not really interested. You know, we have all been in and out of hypnosis many, many times in our life, and many times every day. When you're driving a car and you can't remember the last few kilometers, that's a hypnotic state. You're driving automatically on autopilot. If something were to happen on the road that was different, you'd instantly bring your conscious awareness in as well, because it's there to protect you, remember? And so you'd have conscious and unconscious working together. If you're reading a book, operating a computer, operating a piece of equipment, and you're focusing on it, that's a hypnotic state. Say if somebody's trying to talk to you and you don't hear them, it's because you've gone into mild hypnosis. Children up to age 4 or 5 are in a mild hypnotic state all the time, because they're taking in huge amounts of information. So when they're born, they're like a clean slate, and they start to learn. They hear words, and dog, cat, flower, tree, green, red, yellow, and then after a while they start to put these things into context. And about 4 or 5, we put up a barrier called the critical faculty. Now the critical faculty prevents us from being overloaded by information. Our conscious mind at any point can only really take in about 7 pieces of separate information. When you're driving, you'll see your side of the road, the other side, there might be some trees, or there might be pedestrians, other cars. It's not taking in millions of pieces of information and trying to sort it out. So it really is very, very simple and straightforward. Hypnosis, I consider it to be a focused learning state. We just go down, focus all our attention, the conscious mind, the unconscious, on one thing. And that one thing is becoming a non-smoker for the rest of your life. That's right. During hypnosis, you might want to sneeze or cough or scratch your nose or shuffle in the chair. You just do that. Otherwise, your attention goes on to that thing. But largely, you just relax. And it's a very specific kind of relaxation that allows you to come down through those various brainwaves we discussed earlier. All right, so the good news is hypnosis is simple. Anybody can be hypnotized. Now, if some people, if you suffer really strongly from anxiety or depression and you're medicated for it, let me know, because there's just a few things we can do, and it takes a little longer as a build-up period for you, and they may be helpful. Having said that, I have treated people with all kinds of problems in that area, and most people do really well. Just sometimes some people can't. And but that's the real world, isn't it? Great. So we've got hypnosis out of the way as to what it is. We're going to look at a stress management technique called HeartMath. But before we do, I want to show you something. It's like a little bonus. What I like and what I look for are technologies, methods, strategies that work. So I can say, if 10 people do this, the whole 10 people will get a result. If 100 people do it, 100 will get a result. And this technique is one of those. It's called Wonder Woman or Superman. Either one, depending on who you want to relate to. And it simply looks like this. Standing up straight, eyes straight ahead, hands on hips. Okay. The amazing thing is, just 2 minutes of doing that will pull that stress hormone down we mentioned earlier, the cortisol, back on the other video, which is your stress hormone, and it will push up testosterone. Now, everybody needs testosterone, and testosterone is like your confidence hormone. So if you're feeling unconfident, you tend not to stand like this. You tend to stand, you'll slump. You might sort of rub your hands, or you're fidgety, or something's going on. So you can change how you feel in literally an instant. And we know it's 2 minutes works because in the studies they were doing blood tests, 2-minute intervals, and seeing the cortisol down, testosterone up. And here's why it works. When you stand like this, your brain has been conditioned over and over again to recognize that this is a posture of feeling good, of feeling confident, feeling strong. It also knows that this is the posture of feeling perhaps weak or upset or sad or something like that. And so by changing our physical posture, we can get feedback to the brain which recognizes the state that you want to elicit, and it will pump the right sort of hormones and chemicals around your body to give you that state. Now we can take this one step further. Another study showed that if people were to just stand in front of a mirror and fake a smile for 5 minutes, within 5 minutes, again, the cortisol started coming down, DHEA started coming up, which is a feel-good, live-long hormone, and people felt better. They started to release endorphins. Why? Because the brain thought that the person was smiling, and if they're smiling, they must be happy. Now, it was a fake smile, but the muscles of smiling were activated, therefore the brain simply thought that this person is happy and created the internal environment to suit them. So I always say, why not join both of these together? Stand in front of the mirror, hands on the hips, standing up straight, and smile. And just stare at yourself for a few minutes. pretty soon you'll really be smiling because you feel pretty ridiculous and silly and you can't help but laugh at what you're doing. So there's a really important one. Wonder Woman or Superman technique, you could just do it sitting, by sitting upright in a confident manner. Walk in a confident manner. Stand in a confident manner. Now you don't have to have the hands on the hips, that's part of it. But you can just be that way. You can walk confidently. Walk into a room confidently. Start to have some thought about cigarettes instead of it dragging you down. Stand up, take a deep breath and move confidently. And soon your blood chemistry will change and there won't be any more thought about a cigarette. So on the subject of cigarettes, we're going to look at habits, how all this forms and what we can do about it. Researchers have shown there's 3 aspects to any habit. We have a trigger. That trigger could be you want to relax at the end of the day. It could be you've got a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a glass of wine, a beer. It could be you're having a break at work. It could be you're hopped in the car, on the telephone. You know all your triggers. They're the ones you'll be putting down on your questionnaire and bringing in with you. We have an action. In this case, it's to smoke. And we have a reward or an outcome. It's kind of mentally seen as a reward, but it's not really much of a reward. It could be that you've given yourself a break from work, so you had a trigger of you said it's 10 o'clock, it's cup of tea time. The action is you go outside and have a smoke, and the reward is you feel relaxed. Now, as you've heard me discuss before, the benefit comes from going outside and not from the cigarette. So you could have a different action here, and that could just be the cup of tea. It could be taking some deep breaths. It could be doing some of the heart math technique we'll discuss shortly. It could be any number of things, and so you change it. Now the way habits develop is, say this habit was a cycle of 1 day. When you start smoking, you might have 1 a day, but soon that turns into 2 a day, then 3, and soon, before you know it, this cycle gets tighter and tighter, and it might be 20 or 30 a day. Nothing really has changed other than the triggers start to be, you develop more and more different triggers, and you simply have more actions to get the reward. Now all we want to do is create new, positive actions. And as I mentioned before, some of the things we talked about, it could be Wonder Woman, Superman. It could be taking deep breaths. On the subject of deep breaths, I'll mention this. There's a fellow called Wim Hof, they call him the Iceman. He's been buried in ice for up to 2 hours. He's climbed to Everest Base Camp in his underpants, ran an Arctic marathon with no shoes on, and done lots and lots of things like this. Initially they thought this guy was a one-off, but they showed he could take random groups of people and give them the same skills. And here's the number 1 thing he gets them to do: take deep breaths. So every day, every morning, I have a short period where I do 30 deep breaths. So somewhere between 30 and 40 deep breaths. It alkalizes your system, so you have less pain in your body, you feel better about yourself, you have more energy, but it's also a really good distractor. Now, if you've got time, you might do the 30 breaths once a day. I'd strongly recommend this, because they're also showing that you can regulate your brain function and regulate your immune system with doing this. Very powerful technique. But it could be here, you take 2 or 3 deep breaths. Now we see ads on TV for sprays that take your cravings away, and they advertise that they'll take your craving away inside 2 minutes. Well, that's really a convenient time, because the average craving lasts a bit over 2 minutes. So by the time this is supposed to work, your craving is gone anyway. So yeah, good luck with all that sort of thing. But you're here because you know that some of those other methods just don't work. We want to create new habits. Now, let's say that you weren't coming for hypnosis, but you woke up this morning and you thought, I want to quit smoking. So you make a decision to quit smoking. And tomorrow you end up with the same sort of decision. and you make a choice to smoke or not to smoke. Now, if you choose not to smoke, if you kept doing that long enough and managed to stick to it, you would have a habit. From decision to choice to habit. That's what we're looking for. In hypnosis, we can go from decision to habit very, very quickly. That's what makes it so powerful for you. That's what makes it much, much easier for you. So think about habits. We're going to be introducing other actions into this equation. So HeartMath, fantastic technique. I've been using it now for probably close to 20 years. So back in the 70s, they were introducing stress management into the corporate sector, and a lot of it was based around meditation. And some of the meditation, it was kind of sort of like the end of the hangover from the hippie days. So a company came along and they wanted to do this. They wanted to sell these packages to the corporate sector, but they wanted to make it look more elegant, more professional, and less hippie-like. And they also wanted to be able to prove absolutely that it works. And this is what got me interested in HeartMath, the fact that you can prove it, that everybody who does this will get a predictable result. Now, HeartMath came about by understanding that if you had your brain wired up to an ECG, your heart wired up to an EEG and an ECG, and you had a stressful thought, your thought wave would go from nice and smooth to something like this. But then your heart wave would go to like that. Agitated heart wave, agitated brain wave. They worked out that rather than coming this way through the brain to calm, as is the case in most relaxation techniques, they would come back through the heart. So basically, they would calm the heart wave and the brain wave would calm and you would feel relaxed. And they found a number of ways to do this. Some involved special environments, some involved special music or dolphins or whatever it was that got people relaxed. But they came up with a simple, portable method developed in the 70s. They've been proving it ever since. It works wonderfully. And here's how it works. You place your hand on your heart. You focus your attention on your heart and you allow yourself to feel thoughts of gratitude and appreciation. You can do it with your eyes open or your eyes closed. With your eyes closed, you can perhaps imagine things. With your eyes open, you could look out the window and say, beautiful blue day, blue skies, the grass is green, there's a nice shady tree, or my family's outside. And just let yourself feel these things. It's not important what you think about, it's how you feel. So once you really get into feeling that sense of gratitude, you elicit what we call the relaxation response in the heart and the brain. And you get some very specific benefits. One of the benefits is, see, we have normal ranges. And cortisol, we mentioned, was the stress hormone. Now when you smoke and when you're under stress, instead of the cortisol being in here, and cortisol does have a role, it wakes you up, it's anti-inflammatory, it has many, many functions in the body. Now it comes up here, and you feel bad. This is when people eat more, because remember, carbohydrates dampen down cortisol, only for a little while. Well, we have the other hormone, DHEA, instead of being in here nicely, DHEA comes down here. DHEA is our feel-good, live-long hormone. So by doing 5 minutes of this, and they measured this, they chose 5 minutes to do, again, blood tests at 5-minute intervals. It brought the cortisol back into this range here. So cortisol was back in here, and DHEA was back in here. Both of them in the normal range, where they can do all their normal things. This is dramatic. What I love about this technique, what I love about deep breathing and Wonder Woman, Superman, is you're in control. You can control your internal environment. The other thing it does is within 5 minutes you get a boost in your immune response, and they measure this in the saliva, a thing called immunoglobulin A. It's our first line of defense against the outside world, the bugs and the germs getting around. When we're under stress, when our cortisol is high, our immune system is also low. By bringing this back, we bring the immune system will come back up for 4 to 6 hours. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes will bring your immune system up for 4 to 6 hours, brings your cortisol into a normal range and the DHEA. It's like magic. Now, I've had wonderful feedback from clients over the years, even people with really severe depression getting great results. Their feedback tells me the best time to do this is going to sleep. So remember earlier we were looking at beta, alpha, theta and delta. Well, when you're stressed, you're right up there in high beta. It brings it down into the alpha state. And then as you're thinking and feeling these nice thoughts, you just keep drifting down into sleep. Fantastic way to go to sleep. Instead of going to sleep worrying about your bills or your kids or your work or what's happening tomorrow or all the terrible things you're going to see on the news when you wake up, go to sleep doing this. Now the other feedback is wake up doing it. One woman said she would put her feet on the floor and she wouldn't move until she'd done her heart math. Here's the good news. 5 minutes is the research time. Now you might have to do it for 5 minutes for a week or two. But the more you do it like that, the faster this happens. And this becomes a trigger. Remember in our habits, we want a trigger. The trigger in this case is going to be putting your hand on your heart. The action will be feeling thoughts of gratitude and appreciation, and the reward is going to be all those things we spoke about, pulling the cortisol down, pushing up the DHEA, boosting your immune response. But this period from here to here gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and after you've been doing this for a while, this trigger will fire as soon as you put your hand up. So you literally just put your hand up, take a deep breath, and you'll immediately start to relax because you're conditioning the brain to do that. Now I recommend that in addition to doing your 5 minutes morning and night, which isn't very much, everybody's got the time. If you don't think you have the time, simply rethink it because you do have the time. That during the day you do some mini versions of heart math. Now they may be somewhere where you work or somewhere at home. It could be a particular doorway that you walk through, and every time you walk through that doorway you just walk through and just for a second and just think to yourself, relax, and you keep going. So what are you doing? Every time you're doing that, you're conditioning this and you're firing this reward off in little mini bursts throughout the day. And if you pass through that doorway 10 or 20 times a day and you did it 20 times, you're going to be feeling really, really good. This heart math technique will also be a trigger, or an action, sorry, if you were to think about cigarettes. Add a couple of deep breaths to it. I'm sure you can see there's real value in this. This is simply one of those things that works. It works for everybody. You know, there are always people come along and say, oh, that won't work for me. And I've never had anybody say that who's actually done it. It's usually the people who've never done it. They never tried it. Oh yeah, I tried that once. Really? Wow. It's like a baby trying to walk once and then gives up because it falls over. Fortunately, it doesn't take us as long to become masterful in this as it does to walk for a baby. So heart math is fantastic. And we're going to be integrating HeartMath into the hypnosis session to make it go faster. But we can do something special, because I've asked you also to think about how you're going to feel. Don't worry about me turning my back, because if you were here in the office, I'd be turning around and writing on this board anyway, if we're in the Budrum office. So I want to know how you're going to feel when you quit smoking. This is so important. Typically people say things like, I'm going to feel fantastic, I'm going to feel great, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be in control, I'm going to be successful, or words around that. Now occasionally somebody says, I'm going to feel good. Now that doesn't, I usually dig a bit deeper, but they could be the sort of person who, if they won the lotto, would say, that was good. So I don't try to get them to do something to speak in a way they wouldn't normally speak. So if you're an enthusiastic person, you'll use an enthusiastic word. If you're a little calmer, perhaps more reserved, you'll use a more reserved word. But find that word. So let's say, for example, that you say, I'm going to feel in control of my life, absolutely in control. Fantastic. I will then be asking you, and I want you to think of this now, so I need this information when you come in, and I need you to really thought about this. When else in your life did you feel in control? Now, it could be yesterday, it could be 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it could be a small thing, but think of it as you're sitting telling a friend this story, and you say, I remember this time and I just felt so in control, or so successful, or so happy, or so focused, whatever it is. Find that time, and what I need to know is that you are able to access that time. I don't need to know what it is. That's not important to me. But if I can say to you, can you remember exactly that time? I want you to be able to say yes, because the way we're going to start the hypnosis is, I'm going to have you place your hand on your heart. Remember what we're doing here? Starting the HeartMath, integrating the process. I'm going to have you close your eyes and remember that time you felt that way. This is so important. And I'm going to get you to really think it and remember it and see the colours and the people and the place. I want as much detail running through your mind as possible so that you really do feel in control. So you are triggering all those memories. Just like if you got in your car and you turned the radio on and you heard a song you haven't heard for ages, and you loved that song and you were having such a good time when it was on the radio, and just hearing that song for a moment brings back so many good feelings. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we call anchoring. Anchoring is very, very important in hypnosis. And the reason is this. We are going to take the feeling that you get from whatever that thought is. Let's say it's being in control or successful. That kind of feeling within you, and connect that to you being a non-smoker. So that in the future, if you see someone smoking, if you think about smoking, if you see a cigarette packet or you smell cigarette smoke, you will feel great. You will feel in control. You will feel those same emotions running through you, and you'll feel so good about being a non-smoker, because that's the best way to work. This idea of getting around saying smoking stinks and smoking's rotten and oh, smoking makes me feel ill, it kind of works for a while and then it stops. We live in the real world. We're going to encounter smokers, all of us. And so rather than you thinking there's a stinking smoker over there, oh, they're killing themselves, it's ridiculous. Because we know the worst smokers, the worst non-smokers are the ex-smokers. Instead of that, you could look at a smoker in the street and just say, I feel so good. I feel sorry for them. They haven't quit using hypnosis like I have, but I feel so good. So wrapping up this video, right at the start, remember we said smoking doesn't relieve stress. We're going to be eating apples. We're going to be using HeartMath, Wonder Woman, deep breathing, all these strategies. We're going to be thinking about how we develop new habits. You have an understanding now of how hypnosis works, so that when you come in, you will have your paperwork with you, and if you can't print out for any reason, write down your triggers, read it off the screen, write it down, and bring that with you. And you will be starting hypnosis within 5 minutes of arriving. Now, if you raced in the door and you're huffing and puffing, you've been running, well, we might take a few more minutes to just relax you down, have a glass of water, and just kind of settle everything down. But the best way to relax is by going into hypnosis. And remember, everyone can be hypnotized. All you need to do is want it to work and expect it to work. Now, you can block hypnosis. You can stand up there and say, I can't be hypnotized. Well, that's true if you don't want to be hypnotized. But I'm sure you're not going to turn up and pay good money to not be hypnotized. You turning up because you want this to work for you. It's as simple as that. So you've got the 2 videos. You have to have watched these 2 videos before you come in. You have your form to fill out. Be as comprehensive as possible with it, as specific as possible. If you can't print it out, simple. Write down some notes on some paper and bring it with you. So I look forward to working with you one-to-one. We're going to have you in and out inside an hour. But remember, a lot of the work is already starting to happen. You've made realizations about stress. We've taken away some of your concerns or all of your concerns about what hypnosis is. You started to learn new strategies. And don't wait to come in to do Wonder Woman. Don't wait to come in to start practicing heart math. Just start getting into these things already. And on the day, you'll take away CD tracks that will be showing you how to do the heart math again, reminding you, and also a reminder CD that you can play every day for a week or 2 and then pull out any time you need. It'll be like a 15-minute version of the full session. Now in the future, this will be delivered down as a downloadable, and if you want it as a downloadable now, we can do it that way too. It's just held out in those cloud storage spaces. But at the moment, I'm just giving people CDs. Most people can still play a CD. So I look forward to meeting you face to face. I look forward to taking you that next step to getting you across the line. So now we're moving you closer to the line. So have a think about your cigarettes from now on. Between now and when you come in, look at that cigarette and just say, what are you doing? Why am I doing this? And just start talking each cigarette down. So, this is pointless. I'm going to be glad to see the back of you. I don't need you anymore. And so that when we do the hypnosis, we're just straight into it and getting you across the line, helping create you to be a non-smoker for the rest of your life. Thank you. I'm Ian Newton. I look forward to working with you.